episode of Ben Has a Whiteboard. I'm just kidding. So, no, actually, welcome back, guys. Jake and I are going to go on a little bit of a road trip here to a little town, to Searsboro, to visit Cory Brand at Brand Farms. He's put up a top dryer, I think, in the last like 2 years. So, and I've always wanted to show you guys kind of what I think is a top dry is like probably something that would work really good for me. And also it's really pretty unique on the market. So you'll get to see a lot of those things here, hopefully in a little bit, but I want to give you an idea of what the top dry is. So that's where I've got a whiteboard again. So basically I'm going to try and do this relatively quick. So bear with me on my drawing, but you have a grain bin, normal looking grain bin. Here is like nothing really a lot different about these here. So the difference with the top dry is that there's a floor kind of in here, and I think it kind of looks something like this. I think it looks kind of like a V. So if we're now imagine looking inside of the top dry here, and this is what gives it its name, it's top dry, where if the corn flows through here, it flows through what would be the drying floor of the system. So this grain dries here and then dumps out into what is the storage part of the grain bin. So you get to have corn here. So that means what's different about this is the fact that you have storage underneath what your dryer is, so you don't have to take the grain out immediately from what your dryer when you're drying it, but you're still getting the efficiency, or actually some more efficiency from what I understand, because if we go back to look at this, you'll probably notice that the grain bin's gonna have some fans, or maybe one fan that go up here, and it forces hot air, this is the burner air, into here. So that's pushing the hot air out. Well, this grain, when it drops, it's hot. So it's got heat in it, and then it has just basically an aeration fan, like a normal grain bin, that pushes air. So you're taking the heat from the grain and also pushing it through this is your wet grain. So that is a very rudimentary, basic kind of idea of what we're gonna go look at here today. Top dries have been around, like I said, for quite a while, but I believe the technology in the last 10 years has changed on these top dries. With the storage capability underneath the top dry, I think that really makes a top dry an attractive option, and we're gonna go on a field trip to check one out. Let's get to work.
You go from, say, 5,500 bushels an hour, then all of a sudden you're trying to push 11,000 bushel an hour through there, and then it's like, that's a big leg. Do we actually have the capacity to do that?
Hello.
Tim Hardeman.
Ben.
Tim Hardeman.
Jake.
Matt.
Tim Hardeman.
Good to see you.
Matt, supposed to be
Ben.
Nice to meet you.
Jake.
Jake, Dave.
Matt. So,
Alan here. I'm Cory. Matt?
yeah.
Dave? Matt, Alan, Ben, and Tim.
We're gonna have to have name tags.
And there's no Dan.
This is Cory. This is whose farm it is that we're at today. It's a beautiful place. You guys will see it here in a second. Want to kind of tell us about your farm a little bit?
Brand Family Farms started farming in 2013 and has grown rapidly. We've taken an aggressive stance to grow, and so far we've been successful at that. We farm about 3,500 acres. Tim Hardeman here has been setting me up with my grain bins ever since the beginning, and glad to show you today.
Awesome. So you're first generation then?
My grandparents farmed, both sets of grandparents farmed, and then my family works in metal, so I thought my farming dreams were over, and then my mother-in-law actually was the one who kind of helped me get my start. So
Awesome.
in 2013 we pulled the trigger with just this home farm here, and it's grown incredibly from there.
Good. All right. So we'll, I think, should we go actually take a look at the top dry first? Or do we want to kind of do a tour of your actual facility and kind of show how things come through?
You're in charge.
Let's do that. Let's walk us through of what your facility is actually like. Okay. So like you said, right now we are in the electrical shack, which we'll probably come back to because I'm guessing you got a lot of controllers in here. It's somewhere, yeah, right there in the controller.
Yep.
So you want to talk like through receiving first? We can go outside and
Let's
start
just start
receiving.
outside, then we'll come back.
Like you're bringing in grain in the fall.
So you picked one of the nicest days to do this.
Oh,
This is great.
we've got the coldest day of the year, I guarantee it.
We got, Tim, you tell me, is this 1,100 bushel or 1,000?
1,100 bushel speedy pit. Yep.
Comes out of the speedy pit, we can basically dump one truck in the pit at a time. We carry about 1,150, 1,200 bushel out of the field, so we can basically fill this pit. It's all set up on timers, so the truck can dump and run. As soon as the pit runs dry, all the pit and the grain pump shuts off, but goes directly into our only leg at this time, 6,000 bushel per hour leg, and then we can control that wherever we want to go with the distributor. Most of the time, we've got this bin here, a 33-foot bin set up for wet holding, and then this past fall, we also set up a second 33-foot bin for wet holding as well. All of that is controlled by the dryer. We can see the control box here in a sec, but all that is controlled by that. Unloads and everything turn on automatically. The grain leg is always running and always feeding the dryer.
So you don't have any like building over your pit? Do you have any issues with water in your pit or anything like that, or does it stay out of there?
We've got it tiled underneath. Goes directly to a well, which I thought that well might be a hindrance, but it's actually helpful as far as water drainage. And then we can pump that out if need be. But no, so far no issues with water in the pit.
And then in terms of electricity, what are you using for electricity here?
I was limited to single phase.
Oh boy.
So we've got a 1,000 amp transformer that we are using right now. 3-phase was just way too expensive to get into this location.
So you don't have 3-phase on the road, do you?
No. Tim might be able to answer this better. We do have a lot of 3-phase motors that we use VFDs to control.
But what in terms of facility, like grain storage facilities, like what do you have for storage here right now?
We have roughly 400,000 bushel of capacity here.
Okay.
Which there's shy 200 over here, and then new this year was a 72-foot by 15 ring that holds a little over 200,000 bushel.
Let's go on over and take a look at the TopDry.
Started with these 33-foot bins.
Yeah.
And they told me at the time, they said 800 amp, that's the max, that's all you're gonna get.
Is this the bin here?
This is the TopDry.
Okay.
We can go around to the fans if you want, or we can go up and peek in, or whatever you want to do.
Probably need to do, I don't know. Alan, what do you think? What's the best way to do this? Alan, now it's your turn to shine here. So this is the TopDry. Now give me the... So Alan, now it's your turn to shine again because I had the GoPro on time lapse. But will you tell us exactly what a TopDry is?
Sure. So TopDry has been part of our GSI conditioning portfolio for decades, and it's quite a bit different than a dryer you'd be used to seeing in a portable dryer, tower dryer, or a mixed flow dryer, and that as you roll up to it, it looks just like a storage bin with big ductwork sitting on the outside. TopDry is unique in that as you look at the system, all of the grain dries in a chamber between the roof and a perforated drying floor at the bottom. And a couple things that make it unique is some lower airflow rates give you really good grain quality. Grain dries a little bit more slowly, so you have fewer damaged kernels and fewer stress cracks. And because we dump all of that grain from the top into the bottom, we can reclaim a lot of that heat from the grain as it cools in the storage chamber and recycle it back up for exceptional efficiency.
You got 2 fans on this dryer system here. What are like the specifics on this bin exactly? Do you, either one of you kind of know?
These are both 42-inch, 30-horse fans, LP gas, which you can, there's multiple options there as far as size of fans and natural gas as well. So, or even the Quiet Series fan you can put on TopDry too.
So what is the capacity of this grain, this TopDry right now?
It's around 5-point removal is around, I think, 2,200 an hour. Is that about right? Is that what you?
Yeah, that's the advertised removal there.
Yep.
I went with the biggest fans possible because why not have the most capacity ever, But the reason why I chose this for the most part was it has 30,000 bushel of storage underneath the drying floor there.
Yep.
At the end of the season, that's one of the big selling points of TopDry is with the portable or a tower, you use it and it's a critical piece of your operation when you're using it, but at the end of the year it sits. Whereas a top dry, like you said, you've got up to 30,000 bushels of extra storage.
Not only that, but like the investment, once you make the investment in a dryer, when you look at the cost of a top dry compared to like other dryers out there, it's like when you can pencil like, hey, I also have, like you said, the 30,000 bushels of storage at the end of it.
Right.
That helps tremendously. So, okay, let's, can we go into the bin, or is there corn in there right now?
There's some corn in there, but we can peek our head in.
Okay. Has like, Alan, this has like a floor like normal bins do, or is the floor different on these?
No, it's correct. It's got a normal floor like you'd see in any other bin. We got aeration fans on the side that we will use to provide that cooling air to push air up through the corner.
So these fans here on the side of this are just drying fans. They're not for actually pushing the air through.
That's correct.
To cool it. So there's a cooling fan over there.
That's correct. The big fans with the ducts that you see on the side are only providing the heat for drying, and the aeration fan is providing all the air for cooling.
Okay. All right.
Basically, from the drying floor, or I should say the drying chamber down, it's regular grain bin. It's basically everything on top and up by the roof there that is different.
So then do you transfer out of here after you dry it then?
Right now we're set up with one leg, so
Oh,
we are either drying or transferring. We can't do both simultaneously. That will probably change.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of times where we're drying through the night and up until, you know, the next morning, and we don't have time to transfer that grain out.
Okay.
Depends on how hard we're pushing corn. So.
Okay.
And that is one upside to top dry, is that if you're in a spot where you've only got one leg and you need the ability to dry and then transfer, you've got that time. Top dry gives you the chance to do that, as opposed to a continuous flow dryer where you've got to have two pieces of material handling from the start.
Correct.
Certainly works best probably with two legs, or two ways to get grain in and out, but it does work with one, like you said.
Yeah, it all depends on your throughput of you know, how much corn you're pushing through it and trying to get through it. You know, if you're doing 10,000 bushel a day, you know, you can dry during the day, transfer during the night. But when you're trying to push, you know, 35,000 bushels per day, then that gets, you don't have time to do that.
Okay. So now we're headed to the top of the top dry here to see what it looks like. Is this where we look in?
This is underneath the floor here.
This is a good shot of the dump chutes and how the top dry operates. Basically, every roof panel, there's a hole in the perforated sheet and a chute that is closed when the system is drying. After the temperature is reached, after the timer has elapsed, there's an actuator at the bottom that will allow that chute to open.
Okay.
Grain will all pour from the perforated area into the bottom section, and that chute will close.
And there's what the inside of the top looks like. Can't really see very much, but there's like a kind of a divider or a bank board for it. But there is your drying floor that is in the actual top of the grain bin, which makes it what it is, the top dry.
You can see those leveling bands.
That's what those are called, is leveling bands?
There's a set of those leveling bands, and that keeps the grain in at about the right depth for the airflow that we're providing, so we get a consistent dry from top to bottom.
How deep is the grain usually in these then? They're trying to push it through.
It's between, depending on where it's at, probably 14 to 24 inches thick.
It's no joke. We've chosen the coldest day of the year to do this. It is legitimately like 0 degrees, and it's supposed to feel like negative like 10 or something like that. I'm pretty sure Alan can't feel his hand. Which is a great time to go look at the control systems then, right? So Alan, as we walk to the shack, want to tell me what the sizes that a top dry comes in?
Sure. So we sell them in 24 foot, 30 foot, and 36 foot bin diameters, with capacity ranges 5 points dry and cool from about 500 bushels an hour to 2,500 or 2,200 bushels an hour.
So is there anything that makes the top dry, like is there specialty crops or anything like that the top dry is good at compared to other dryers or anything along those lines?
We see top dry really useful in applications where an end customer needs food grade quality. You can turn the top dry down quite a bit and maintain really good grain quality. So if you've got a customer that's looking for white corn for tortilla chips or something like that, top dry is a really good option.
Now that we've looked at the top dry, we're going to talk like we're going to be drying some grain here. So you want to walk through kind of what your control system you have in your facility here is, and maybe why you chose to go with this, or you guys decided it together.
Yeah, I might not be the guy to talk to on this one here, but basically, we're dumping in the pit, dumping in the wet bin. We make sure we got enough capacity in the wet bin before we turn it on. One thing that Tim got set up for me is that dryer always has choice. So anytime incoming grain comes in, if the dryer is calling for grain, the leg gives it to it straight out of the pit. Anytime the dryer shuts off, then it overflows into the wet bin. So basically, just here on the controls, you can control everything from either my control panel here or just on the outside of the wall here. But you got aeration fans, your load augers, fans, heaters. This is kind of used minimally, maybe when you're starting or first getting started drying, or when you're doing your last batch. You can actually hold that grain up in there a little bit, but pretty self-explanatory. Either you got on or auto, and whether you want it or not. Up in here, you got all your temperatures, your timers, your settings. One thing that I love to look at here is you can look at your history, and it shows you all of your cycle times, all your fill times, all your temperatures. If you ever switch settings, you can kind of go back and check some things. And you got an event log for any warnings or alarms or messages that you need there. Really simple to run. All the changes and timers and temperatures are all easy to change. Really, so far, been a great system to run.
So do you do anything from your phone? Do you use your phone at all to like kind of monitor to this, or is it just in here?
I do not. Typically, we have a guy here at the shack, especially when we're drying, basically all the time. So if there's any issues, I'm just a phone call away. The thing that I've got things to learn on the phone type and the app side of it here, but I don't think I can control anything from my phone. I can just monitor. So that's one of the reasons why we have a guy here when we're drying.
Alan, you want to add anything about this controller here? You give it kind of more.
No, I think Cory did a pretty good job of covering some of the basics. The control has been around for coming up on 10 years now, and we've had really good success with the terminal control. As the auto flow control sits like you see it here, we have a batch controller that's a little more basic for customers that don't need as much automation or care a little bit more about some of the basic operation. But through our GSI Connect platform and our PLC watchdog, we do provide access remotely for those customers that don't maybe have the same ability to have somebody on site all the time.
So what's the difference in between the auto flow and the batch dryer that you're just talking about?
So the batch dryer is truly going to be manual batch. It's got timers, and it's got thermometers or thermostats, but it's not going to automatically dump any of the grain out of that top system, whereas the auto flow is going to dump automatically as it needs to keep that process running.
So in auto mode, you saw the different leveling bands and everything in there. So we've got it set right now for 31 seconds. So those dump chutes open for 31 seconds, which roughly dumps about a third of the capacity of the drying chamber up there. So am I right on that? About a third? So you're heating up the top, the bottom is finishing, the bottom dumps out, and then it just kind of keeps moving through there in stages. So a true batch dry, you are filling, you are heating, you are drying that entire batch, and then you can dump that in.
So here's the question for you, and you're kind of new with the system too, is that how cool is so say you dried your full capacity of your bin, how cool is that grain when you're pulling it out of there? Is it still really hot, or is it been cooled off significantly?
So obviously we'll wait for the floor to get covered up before we turn on the aeration fan, but basically it's just continues to recycle that heat and pushes it up through the corn that you're drying. So actually that's a little bit of you chase that a little bit on your settings as far as what temperature you want it and how long you want it to be in there. But the corn's still reasonably hot, depends on the outside air conditions, but I don't even know. I'd say.
So do you have? So would a guy have? I guess would a guy have like an issue if the grain was hot and then dumping it into like the big bin over there and getting it cooled, or is it going to be cool enough that it isn't a big issue to go into a larger storage facility?
There again, it all depends on ambient air temperature and what your weather's like. So the cooler the outside air, the better chance you have of cooling the grain. But so typically on a situation like this where we know there's a better chance of transferring warm or hot corn, we just make sure we got plenty of airflow on the storage bins.
I have actually gotten into trouble. This year we actually put cables in 3 of our bins, and we was able to catch it quick. Last year we were climbing ladders and looking in the top.
We had the cables to save our butts too. We transferred grain out of a dryer bin into another bin, and we thought everything was good to go. And I got a phone call from Greenview, says, hey, you got a hot spot showing up. And it's like, you serious or whatever? And it's like, yep. And it was like, you climbed up there, it was like, dump it. It saved our butts.
That's another good reason to think about cables or some sort of monitoring system in those bins, so you've got a good idea of what's going on.
How do you feel it does on, like, in terms of like efficiency with the LP and propane and stuff like that?
I honestly don't have anything to compare it to. But I mean, when you think about it, when it's recycling that heat from the corn below, I mean, it has to be better almost.
We would typically see 20-25% at least more fuel efficient than a portable dryer that's not reclaiming any heat, for example.
Oh, really?
Pretty similar efficiency to what you'd see in a tower dryer, but much more efficient than a portable dryer, for example.
So 2 years with the TopDry, would you rebuy it?
You know, every setup is different. I don't see any reason why not to be honest. Grain condition is good, efficiency is good, got extra holding capacity beneath it, so I don't see any reason why I wouldn't.
Awesome. We are back. We're out of the cold. That was really cool to see a TopDry. Freezing, but really cool to see a TopDry. There's a whole lot of information that I'm going to list in the description. If you got the brochure for this, it really does a good job of covering the TopDry. That's all linked down in the description. Check that stuff out. Like I said, something like that really could fit well into our operation. Other than that, hey, I want to say thank you to Cory for letting us come and with a GoPro and poke our nose around at your farm. You got a beautiful farm there. And thanks to Alan, a wealth of information, getting us all the details that we need to on the TopDry. And then, of course, Tim, who was the dealer and the builder for the system. But well, basically, kind of sounds like he's built most of that facility there. So their information also is kind of, I got it somewhat listed in the description there. Thanks to those guys. There's a couple other people there, too. Yeah, very cool to see that. Thanks to GSI for sponsoring this video. But let's go warm up, and we'll see you guys in the next one.